So our next presenter is Seth Kramer. Mr. Kramer leads the lead and coppering monitoring team at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality's Water Supply Division. His past work includes developing and implementing the voluntary lead testing in school and child care program. He also served as a compliance officer for the lead and copper rule, and Seth has a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a certification in environmental technologies. Please welcome Seth Kramer.
Thank you all very much. So for some of you that have stayed in the room after Lily's presentation, a little bit of this is going to be some duplication for y'all, but that's a good thing because I'm going to drive home 3 of the key points on what you all need to really know coming up on October 16th this year. And then I'm going to make an important distinction for you all between those 2 things, because then we're going to transition and we're going to talk a little bit about the proposed lead and copper rule improvements. And I want to make sure that we understand the delineation between when I'm talking about what you really need to know right now for LCRI, and then, what we just want to kind of have in our minds, because we won't know until the rule actually promulgates here. And it's going to have to happen before October 16th. So EPA is going to probably, from the way it seems right now, I bet we'll be seeing it right around October 16th. There's no necessary indication that I'm aware of right now that anything's coming out sooner. So with that, thank you all. It's great to see all the same faces out here. And I'll go ahead and give you some more good information on lead and copper rules. What we're going to cover today in this outline is the basic presentation purpose. The promulgation timeline, again, that's to kind of help us see the differences here, right? Because we got 3 rules coming right on top of each other. So I want to make sure that I can help clear that up and make sure we don't get confused by it, which is almost impossible for most of us, quite honestly. The lead and copper rule revisions and the key provisions of the proposed LCRI have the opportunity with some time to show you all some resources, and we'll open it up for some questions. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to learn how these past and future rules intersect. I want to explain those upcoming lead and copper rule requirements, the stuff that's due October 16th, okay? We're going to highlight those key provisions of the proposed lead and copper rule improvements. I can't possibly cover all of the changes in there, but we're going to touch on the big ones that are mostly highlighted by EPA. And then I'm going to share some of those EPA resources that, quite frankly, most of my presentation is based off of today, and you'd be able to go ahead and view some of those yourselves. Okay, so to know where we're going, let's talk a second here about how we got there. So just take a look at this timeline for a second. The original lead and copper rule, the one that we are for the most part running on today, was in 1991. That was when it was promulgated. Now, at the bottom, you'll notice that when a rule is proposed, it becomes promulgated or finalized, and then 3 years later is the compliance date for that rule. So as we move down that promulgation date timeline at the top, we find ourselves over here at the promulgation of the LCRI in 2021. And where are we right now? We're almost 3 years after. So we are at that compliance date for the rule of October 16th, 2024. Now, we all know about this LCRI, right? The lead and copper rule improvements. Now, that initially was promulgated has not been promulgated yet. Right? So it was proposed several years back, and then it was drawn back for a little bit, and now it's going to be promulgated here before October 16th. So anything in the lead and copper rule improvements right now will not have a compliance effective date until sometime in 2027 based on the date that it's finalized. Let me do that again. We got the lead and copper rule right now, the Texas Administrative Code that we're all aware of. And then we're going to have the lead and copper rule revision, right? However, the lead and copper rule improvements are going to come in, and they're basically going to say only 3 things in the entire lead and copper rule revision is going to be applicable and which you need to comply to on October 16, 2024. And I'm going to very much specify those 3 things for you right now. So the upcoming activities here for the lead and copper rule revisions. That initial lead service line inventory, which Lillian Johnson just talked to you all about, that is due on October 16, 2024. And then there's a couple of additional notice requirements. One of them is to deliver to the customers with service lines that are either non-lead, right? So galvanized replacement, service lines that are lead status unknown, or service lines that are lead. I will call them the affected customer. And so you will deliver to the affected customer you will deliver that notice to them of their line materials or their unknown line materials, and you'll do that within 30 days after submitting your inventory to us, which is not due until October 16th, 2024. So that is a notification that you have to do along with the inventory. The inventory also has an accessibility to it. So sometimes this gets a little confusing. So in the inventory, you need to make that inventory accessible to the public, right? So a lot of folks will do that with a web page. It can be done with a spreadsheet, something like that, where the public has the ability to see all the service lines and your inventory. That is in itself its own requirement that you will satisfy when you submit the lead service line inventory to us. And then within 30 days, you're going to notify those affected customers. And then there's one more public notice requirement that's going to go into effect in October 16th, and that is going to be an additional Tier 1 notice, and that's a 24-hour notification that you will have to provide to your consumers within 24 hours after learning of a lead action level exceedance. So if you have an action level exceedance for lead, come October 16th, you're going to have to give notice to your public within 24 hours and submit that to the state within 24 hours also. I'm going to talk about each one of these a little bit more. We're going to break it down. Initial lead service line inventories. So all water systems must develop this inventory to identify the materials of service lines. All service lines must be identified, connected to the public water distribution system. So that's both the water system side and the customer side. The service lines must be categorized as either lead, galvanized requiring replacement, lead status unknown, or non-lead. The notification of known or potential lead service lines, that was the second notification, or the first notification addition I talked about. That's going to be required to inform all customers with a lead service line, a galvanized requiring replacement, or a lead status unknown service line, and that has to be done within 30 days of having submitted your lead service line inventories to us. Now, the Tier 1 public notice. Tier 1 public notices, again, that's going to be only for a lead action level exceedance. And so if you have an action level exceedance now, has anyone out there, anyone want to raise their hand and tell me that have they ever had to go through the action level exceedance process? Anybody feel like admitting it? Yeah, it's quite a process, right? Yeah, you'll be informed of the you'll know the exceedance when you get the results back from your laboratory, right? You'll calculate your 90th percentile. Or, preferably that's what everyone would do, right? Everyone needs to be on top of their lead results. Honestly, with this Tier 1 public notice, I'm going to tell you all right now, pay attention to what your lead results are, because you're going to want to be on top of that and know. You don't want to wait until we inform you that you had a 90th percentile action level, okay? You'll want to know and prepare for the fact that you're going to have to turn around and do a 24-hour notification. And I know that that's going to be a big lift for a lot of people. So I want to make sure we understand that. And we can talk about this more here at the end. So with that, the Tier 1 notification is done. And so those are the three things right there, right? Lead service line inventory, notifying the affected customers, and then if you had an action level exceedance, you're going to do the Tier 1 public notification now. So then what's going on between now and, right, between October 16, 2024 and that compliance date of the LCRI, which if we go back to those earlier slides on the timeline, that's not going to be until 2027. So what's happening now? You're going to continue to follow the existing 30 TAC 29017 regulation of lead and copper rule. And then another layer is going to come in over top of that, the lead and copper rule revision, which is then going to have those three key elements that you have to add to what you're currently doing. Does this make any sense? Does everybody, give me some nods, give me some back and forths. What do we got here? Is it making sense? So that's how that's going to work. So everything's the same as it is. We add those three additional components to the lead and copper rule revisions, and then we wait for anything new that comes from the lead and copper rule improvements, whether it's the 5th liter sampling, or it's the school and child care, or it's the other information you may know about and heard about, lead service line replacement requirements. All those things are down the road. So I just want to make sure I kind of get that one home. Okay, so with that then, right there, because this is true, okay? We just covered the most important thing. If there's nothing that you take home today other than those three elements that I talked and how that layers over top of the LCR, then I'll have been successful in my message here today. So with that, I'm going to talk about the future rule here, and we're going to go into some of those key provisions of the LCRI so that you can kind of have an idea of what's coming, okay? So the lead service line inventories will come back around again as a baseline inventory sometime in 2027. And at that point, you will be required to update that inventory annually and create that replacement plan and identify all of your unknown service line materials. You will have to do it. So you can turn it in now with some unknowns, and I'd recommend you take advantage of the 3 years you have between now and that baseline inventory to get those unknowns identified. Also, along with that inventory, there's the possibility that connectors will need to be inventoried, pigtails, goosenecks, that type of thing. There's also going to be an inventory validation. So if you have a lot of non-lead service lines, there's going to be an expectation that you validate a percentage of those. But that's not until 3 years before the 10-year deadline for replacing or identifying all of your unknowns and your replacements, okay? So let's look at that a second, right? So at some point, you're going to have to stop and say, all right, here's some validation, here's some evidence that shows that these are actually non-lead, and it's going to be a subset. It won't be every single one of them. But if we do the math on that right now, 3 years before the 10-year deadline, that's 7 years out of that 10, and we got 3 more years till we get there. Guys, we got 10 years before we actually get to this part of the rule, just to give you kind of a perspective, right? And so when you're working with this inventory, it's an awful lot right now, but we've been talking about the inventories for several years. There's going to be 3 additional years that are offered to you to kind of get things going now because of the LCRI being pushed back. And then you even have additional time to continue your work there. Don't use that as an excuse to put it off, okay? Go ahead and get started, but know that no one expects you to be able to turn all this over in a couple of months. Unless, of course, you're fortunate enough to have a small number of lines and this task isn't as daunting for you. So there will be an expectation of a 100% lead service line replacement. In the LCRR, there was going to be a trigger to make you start replacing lead service lines. They did away with it. And I expect this to hold. This is very likely going to stand in the LCRI. And that is going to be that a 100% of all lead service lines must be replaced. There is an opportunity for a deferment of that deadline, but most systems will have to do it within that 10-year period. That deferment deadline, the possibilities of that would be for folks who have a tremendous number of lead or galvanized refining and replacement, such as greater than 100,000. At that point, we would look for 10,000 per year, right? And so there would be the opportunity for you to extend past that 10-year period if you had a tremendous number, or if you have a large percentage of lead or galvanized requiring placement per 1,000 households. So if you have a large percentage per your households, 39 per 1,000, right? In that case, you might have the opportunity to defer it. But for most people out there, you're going to have that 10-year deadline that's going to apply to you. And then those requirements, of course, are to fully replace the lead and the galvanized requiring replacement. Another provision of the LCR is improving the tap sampling. So sites with lead service lines that have been identified with lead service lines, the normal tap sampling process is now going to include a 5th liter sample. And in that process, when you determine the 90th percentile, now the highest value result on the sample will be used to determine compliance. It'll be added into that 90th percentile. There's also going to be an update in the sample site classification. So you're going to have to redo all of your sample site tiers, okay? That's a big lift too. The site classification will change. You can continue to use many of your sites, but dependent upon what your lead service line inventory informs you on, you're going to need to start sampling at the sites based on the higher risk sites that you evaluated with the lead service lines. So along with the updating of that sample site classification, it does one thing. It combines the sample site selection criteria for the community water systems and the non-transient non-community water systems. Some of you may be familiar that there's 2 different tiering setups for that. It's all going to be one now, okay? It's going to prioritize those sites with a lead service line or that have lead pipe. And it's also going to include those galvanized pipe downstream of a lead service line or a lead connector. Those are now going to be your higher tiers, Another thing that's going to happen is that they're going to lower the lead action level. Right now it's 15 parts per billion or micrograms per liter. It's initially in the lead and copper rule revision, they were talking about taking it from 15 down to 10 and having 10 be a trigger in which it would trigger other actions. They've gone ahead and they've said, nope, we're just going to lower it across the board. So your 90th percentile calculation is now going to be based on 10 parts per billion and not 15 any longer. We've looked into this and we've kind of, evaluate what this impact's going to be. Typically right now, year over year, between 30 and 50 systems have an action level exceedance here in the state of Texas. Evaluating what that would look like if we were to have action level exceedances at the 10 parts per billion, it basically about doubled it. So it's still a pretty small number of folks when you consider we have about 5,500 systems that are affected by the lead and copper rule that must comply to the lead and copper rule. So definitely a few folks out there, it's going to affect them, but overall, the action level exceedances, they are not that common. They'll continue to remain that way with the 10 parts per billion. Along with that ALE requirement, there will be the public notification and informing the public that it's going to always continue to include your lead consumer notice to the homes that you sampled, but now you're going to do that 24-hour notification that would be on top of that. That's already going to be in effect. The public education requirements will all be there. And you'll be expected to concurrently work to replace any lead service lines that you have if you have an action level exceedance, and install or adjust any corrosion control treatment that you may have at the time. Another thing is to strengthen those protections. Systems with multiple ALEs, so if you have 3 action level exceedances within a 5-year period, right now the proposed LCRI is going to require making filters available to all the consumers. There's going to be additional outreach on top of what I've already talked about. That's not known quite yet, but there's going to be even more. And then we're going to repeat that public education activity every 6 months. One more provision here is the distribution system and site assessment. Now, in the lead and copper rule revision, for those of you that might be familiar with it, they were calling it I believe they were calling it a find and fix. They've gone ahead and they've renamed that to distribution system and site assessment in the lead and copper rule improvements. So you'll be required to sample at the individual site now that would come up with more than 10 parts per billion. And so that is a definite change there for you, okay? So the action level, which is a 90th percentile calculation, is going to be 10, but now the individual site, if you have 10 or greater on there, there's going to be a requirement to resample there, collect up, and then collect distribution system water quality parameters. And water quality parameters, some of you may be familiar with that, especially if you've been an action level exceeder, or if you've had a new source or a new treatment at some time that you added here, you've been required to go out and collect those water quality parameters. So that's something that will likely affect more people that are unfamiliar with the WQP process and collecting water quality parameters. So remember that word. You got 3 years to think about that one. Hopefully you don't find yourself in a situation where you need to do them anytime soon, but if you do, we're there to help you with that. We have all the guidance you need, and we can get you through that process. You're also going to need to determine if an adjustment of any optimal corrosion control treatment or other distribution system actions are necessary. So they're going to be looking in the localized area to see if there's some optimization that could be made right there at that site. And then there is the possibility for a deferment of your optimal corrosion control treatment and re-optimized optimal corrosion control treatment processes. I'm going to be very interested in seeing what the lead and copper rule improvements says about this particular potential provision here. The provision here is that if you can remove 100% of your lead and your galvanized refining replacement service lines, and you can do it at twice the rate of what you're going to be required normally, so 20% over 5 years, that you would be able to defer having to optimize your corrosion control treatment and install treatment for the system. There's a lot of things that seem tricky about that. So I'll be interested in seeing what the rule is, but that is a key provision, and it may work well for folks who can get all those service lines out of the ground instead of actually installing treatment. Another key provision, and the last one here, is improved public education requirements. there's a push, as you can see, because we've already started with the public notice requirement. We've already got the notification of affected customers coming up here with the on October 16th, right? Expect more. Expect more customer interaction. Expect more notification. And my advice is to consider your approach, right? Because as the years go by, consider the way you inform your customers about their water quality as a service to them, and maybe not as much as just the TCEQ's forcing you to do this all the time. Because the messaging that you're gonna have to start getting out to your community, it's gonna increase on you. And your community is gonna receive it better, I imagine, when it is a willful choice and that you're giving a positive message to them. So expect more messaging to your community. So with that, I've pretty much finished up the bulk of this presentation. What I'll show you then, just briefly, is I'm going to show you some of those resources that I have. Oh, look at that. It stays up right there. Okay. I'm going to pull that down, and I'm going to show you the EPA's webpage so I can show you these valuable resources. Also, so y'all know, we've got printouts out there with QR codes of all of the fact sheets about the lead and copper rule improvements. If you read nothing but the fact sheets from the EPA, go over to the technical assistance room out there on one of the tables. You can pick one of these up. I'd recommend going ahead and taking a look at them. If you're interested in more of what I was talking about today, you'll be able to hear everything I talked about there. So on the proposed lead and copper rule improvements webpage here, as you work your way down through their general questions and answers, a lot of that's for the public on top. But we come down here to supporting materials and fact sheets. This is where you want to be. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions for anybody who has anything that they want to ask.
In what we are reporting, we are indicating whether or not there is a lead connector, like a lead gooseneck, between a galvanized line and an old steel line, for instance. And right now, we do not know what the plan is for what will be done with that information.
You mean as you're collecting it right now at this time?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're collecting that information at that time on the lead service line inventory form, we do have a place for you to be able to maintain that record so that you would have that available in the event that the lead and copper rule improvements would need that. So if you're being proactive right now and you are also inventorying those connectors, that's a really smart move. Everyone should be doing that. If they're coming across those connectors while they're doing this current inventory, it is highly likely you'll need to supply them 3 years down the road. Did that answer your question?
In a way, and leads into my second question. So the reason that galvanized requiring replacement exists is that the lead absorbs the galvanized steel lines absorb the lead because it's been ionized into the water that's flowing through, correct?
So water will leach lead into it over time as it sits in the pipes. That is correct.
Even if the chemical analysis of your water indicates it's too hard and there's a protective film, I mean, that's the whole point of the corrosion control.
Well, the point in corrosion control, especially if it's an inhibitor, is going to be to produce a passivating film that prevents the metals from leaching out of the pipes. Otherwise, you're doing pH or alkalinity adjustments so that the water is more stable, right? Because it's a responsibility to produce stable water, right? So that it won't leach as much out of it as it would over time. I mean, I would go to tell you, I mean, no matter how stable your water is, I mean, almost every single chemical in the periodic table is soluble in water, and left in it long enough, I mean, it will eventually dissolve into water. So,
okay, then I have one final question. I know I've taken too much time, but so with all those things being said, we understand how cross-contamination control works. Understand the water heaters pushes water back into city mains from service lines. So is this going to impact all of the steel and ductile mains that are in service? Because the same logic applies to those mains as to the galvanized requiring replacement lines.
I don't think I saw your question there.
I'm asking if there's going to be a problem, not a problem, if in the future this will affect our steel and ductile iron water mains.
Okay, so you're asking, is this a slippery slope, right? Like if we start replacing service lines, someday everyone's going to have to replace mains?
Well, we've already said that we have those lead pieces in our water system.
Oh, so what those lead connectors are, those are limited to your service lines. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, good point. I mean, it could be. I doubt it, though. I mean, that's an even bigger lift, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to what could happen in the future with that. But right now, we are specifically talking about the lead service line itself and the connectors there. So, yeah, but that's an important distinction.
When do we update our tiers and sampling pool? And when will TCEQ have that form available for us?
So the tiering on the sampling pool won't be required to be updated until the lead and copper rule improvements. So that's going to be at least 3 years down the road. And when we have something available for you, we will certainly have something available for you. We'll get working on it as soon as we actually know what the new classification of the tiers is based on the new lead and copper rule improvement. And then also, if you use the lead service line inventory portal, that we have a test environment that you can all look at here at 3:30 in Sabine. There's a workshop on this. If you use that portal, it's going to calculate those tiers for you once we know what the actual specifications for that calculation is. So our vendor who provides the portal is going to program that into it. So if you put your service line inventories in that portal now, even if you've got them in the form, you can transfer those right over to the portal. Shouldn't take you more than about an hour. It is a little extra work, but it'll be housed up there for you permanently, and you'll be able to take advantage of things like the tiering calculations and service line replacement rates.
Hi, I could remember, will the sampling schedules change when the LCRI comes in? Like, will everybody have to resample again for just lead and copper sampling?
Schedule change?
Yeah, is there a schedule change on any of that?
Oh, you mean will everyone have to return to 6-month monitoring?
Yes.
We're going to wait and see what the lead and copper rule improvements tell us on that. Yeah, but if you have lead lines, I think we can count on that for sure then.
All right, you mentioned during your speech that there may be a possibility that every home or all homes that exceed will be provided filters. Who will be responsible for the maintenance? At that point, is the filter considered part of the utility responsibility, or customers?
So that part of the speech I was talking about, the lead and copper rule improvements, where that rule has not actually been finalized. And so I can't answer that question for you at this time. I don't even know if that's going to continue to be an option in the rule. It could be an option in the rule, but we'll know at that point in time. But that's a good question.
Okay, I'm a customer service inspector. When I was very new at it, I inspected a home. I asked the lady, did you have any recent plumbing things fixed? And she says, as a matter of fact, I did. It's in the wall here. She had an access port, and I tested it, and sure enough, it had lead. So what are we going to do about the inside of the house, the faucets, the fixtures, and the pipes in the walls eventually?
As of now, that'll be up to the customer to make those type of replacements for you, but what you could do is certainly provide them the type of technical assistance that would help them understand, what they need to replace, how they need to replace it, maybe even assist them. If you wanted to assist them as an individual water system, you could do that for them. But right now, anything on the customer side is still a responsibility of the customer, unless, of course, you have some other rule or regulation locally that says otherwise, which some people do. Right now, there's another city out there that sent out a notice to everyone saying, hey, guess what? You're going to have to replace all your lines based on our city's rules, right? So they passed rules that were more stringent than what we're requiring. So it just depends on place to place. But
If we have to replace the lead service lines from the meter to the house, who is responsible for them in the future then?
from the meter to the home right now is still going to be the responsibility of the actual customer itself.
Even though we have to pay to, if they're found to be lead, we have to pay to replace it.
Right now, you do not have to pay to replace that line on the customer side. You're responsible for identifying the material on the customer side and reaching out to them and trying to get them to replace it or help them assist them with funding. But right now, you're going to be responsible for replacing your side of it. you're right. This is something that I get at any time I've given this presentation. It's a common thing. You're like, wait a second, I can't go into the customer's house. No, you can't. I mean, unless you have some sort of local ordinance or regulation, or you've got agreements, access agreements to say, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix this yourselves. Here at the TCEQ and the United States Environmental Protection Agency, there's nothing in this rule that's going to force you to go on their property and somehow forcibly change their line. There is something in the LCRI that states that you will be required to continue to tell that new resident, right? So when someone changes hands the house, you're required to say, hey, you got a lead service line, and we would like you to replace it. In fact, we even have some funding sources, or we've got these other things that you could use to get it done, and they can be like, I don't care. That's my service line. I'm going to want to replace it. I like my lead. And so they can continue to like that lead, but when they turn over to a new house, you go back and you say, hey, and now the odd thing about that rule, though, is it almost seems like it's in perpetuity, which is, I'm interested in seeing what that looks like here come towards October. I want to read that again, but really the only responsibility you have is to inform them. And then when they switch over again, inform them again, encourage them, try and get them to do it. But there's nothing that requires you to force you to do that. Yeah, okay, you're welcome.
Going back for just a moment to the action level reporting that you were referencing earlier, what is the criteria? I mean, once you've reached that action level, unless they replaced it, it's there. So are we going to, as of October the 16th, have to look back at our records and see anybody and everybody that ever reached that action level and notify them?
No, it's going to be October 16th moving forward. Okay. Yeah, it's not going to be retroactive. You aren't going back in time.
As far as notifying people for the unknown galvanized requiring replacement or lead, are we going to be required to notify whenever that property changes hands still? Is that something that is expected to possibly change with the LCRI or what?
With the LCRI, you're going to update that inventory annually. When that property changes hands, yes, under the LCRI, there's an expectation right now that you will inform them of what you've determined in your lead service line inventory. Yeah, so as you get a new person, a new customer, right, new service agreement with them, that's also something, we encourage, this is outside of the lead and copper rule, but the Water Supply Division encourages everybody to get service agreements with everyone that they have as a customer. That's something that can assist you in being able to have access to these type of things. So as long as I've been here, over 7 years now, I've always heard from, a different side. I'm in monitoring, right? I do the sampling stuff, but they're always encouraging someone like, get a service agreement, get an access agreement. And so as you turn over customers and you turn over new service agreements, you might want to think about doing that. That's going to be able to help you with those type of things. You're only going to re-inform customers if so for LCRR, if your inventory changes, okay, and you say an unknown you find is a galvanized refining replacement or it is a lead service line, you need to inform those customers as you go along, or if something changes in that effect.
Our compliance sampling is due on 2025, so is our action level exceedance 10 parts per billion or 15 parts per billion for our 90th percentile?
The 90th percentile is not going to change until the compliance date for the lead and copper rule improvements. And so anything between now and some point right around this time in the next few months, 2027, you're going to continue to be impacted by the existing lead and copper rule as it is, and that's 15 right now. I think we got like 2 or 3 minutes.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, sorry.
We'll take one more here.
Right here, just real quick. Okay, so you said ultimately, as of now, it's still city side, customer side. That's not changing. The city can determine how they want to enforce, or not say enforce, but all we really have to do is tell them, hey, look, there's lead here. I would replace it if I were you. And that's because that's all the rule says as far as the way I read it, correct?
At this time.
Can
yes.
a city say, hey, you're going to have this done by a certain date or pulling your water meter? It's not my city, but it's already it's rumbling.
I got to tell you, the ins and outs of the legalities of what you could do to actually to cease serving water to somebody, I don't have an answer to that one. That's going to kind of go outside my legal expertise.
It may not be a city that's already
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's possible as long as your lawyers agree that that's something you can do, but I can't tell you whether or not it's possible for you to do it. But, but you bring up a good point here, right? Is that we have a minimum standard, right, that we're going to hold from the EPA, and that more stringent standards can be passed by counties and cities and whatnot. So, it's possible, I suppose, but I can't really speak that way. I hope they don't necessarily tell you that. I think that wraps it up then. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful to you.